we playing this 7th match out?
No. Hello and welcome! It is Standard Super League time once again. I'm Randy Bueller. I am joined tonight by David Williams. Welcome, Dave.
What's going on, Randy?
Not too much. I am hyped. I love that sweet new intro video. Got to give props to Jeffrey Palmer, Living MTG Cards on Twitter. Did a spectacular job with that, I think.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I missed my own part. So I'll check it out.
Now we got to find out what's going to happen with Standard post Pro Tour. Now you played this Pro Tour. Tell me about your deck, and you played the Pro Tour. You also got voted in by the fans to play here tonight. So I know you're coming up a little later. Walk me through what you think is going on, though. I know your Pro Tour experience was maybe not quite the one you wanted, but the story at least sounded interesting.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm on Team Ultra Pro, and I work with, Sam Black, Matt Sperling, Paul Rietzel, Patrick Chapin, Bob Maher, Justin Cohn. Our team is, our team's been making kind of waves in the Pro Tour. And coming up, I went to Wisconsin for about 2 weeks, a week before the Grand Prix and then the week before the Pro Tour, and we tested, and we had a lot of different options. And Sam's green-white or Bant, has a baby splash of blue tokens deck. A lot of people were impressed after the Pro Tour and have called it, one of the most interesting innovations of the deck, of the Pro Tour, or powerful decks and whatnot. And it's weird because he discovered he'd been working on Retreat to Emeria all week, but he discovered that iteration of it, I'd say the night before. And when he tried, black, white, Esper, blue, white, so many different versions. And the night before he's like, check this out. And the green-white version, which is funny because the only green really is Elvish Visionary and Nissa, but Nissa's so amazing in that deck. Yeah. And the deck was powerful, but I think what it was, because a lot of us were kind of sold on it, but then a lot of us were a little scared of it because it only had a day of testing and there was no real sideboard plan. This up.
The way I heard the story, it was literally Thursday morning he brewed this thing up, 24 hours before round one.
Yeah, and the blue didn't appear to the deck until I woke up for the Pro Tour. I woke up for the Pro Tour, and there was a thread in our Facebook group, hey guys, adding blue, some Dispels, and some Lumbering Falls. So it was kind of like, do I really want to go into the Pro Tour with something that is untested and just, even though we had a day of testing and we've been testing different Retreat to Emeria decks all week, I was still nervous and I wanted to do well so badly. I was like, I'm just going to go with something tried and true. And Craig Wesco had been working on his green-white Megamorph deck, which is, not hugely different than what you used to see, but it was just very tuned and focused. And I was like, I'm just going to play that. I felt like it was a safe bet. I was very confident in my drafting. Felt like I would get a 3-0 or a 2-1. I ended up going 2-1 with an amazing deck. And if I had something solid in standard, I can maybe get a 4-1 if I'm lucky, 5-0, at least 3-2. I'll come into day 2, hopefully somewhere around 6-2, 5-3. And if I have a powerful day 2, maybe it's my time. Unfortunately, if I could go back in time, I would just have played the tokens deck because everyone who played it other than Tom Martell, Justin, Ben Stark, and Sam all, I think, went 8-2 with it. The deck was great. People were unprepared for it. And I think the difference is when you go to the Pro Tour, you really want to bring a deck where your opponents are caught off guard. And when I showed up with green-white Megamorph, even though a few people did well with it, in general, my opponents knew what I was up to. They all had a sideboard plan. They were ready for whatever I was bringing at them. So I wasn't able to really get those wins from my opponents just not knowing how to approach the match. And I ended up kind of also on the wrong side of some variants. I mean, I played a teammate, Andrew Backstrom, on Jeskai. I'd never actually done this. I started the game at 3 cards, had to keep a 3-card no-land hand because every hand before that didn't have any lands in it, and just didn't feel like going to 2. Then the next game I had to go to 4 cards, keep a 1-lander with some 4-drops. So, I had some unfortunate luck because I needed 1 win in the last 4 rounds. I was 3-1, needed to get to 4-4 to make day 2. But I really just think at the Pro Tour is when you really want to kind of take some risk. The payoff is huge if you're able to be successful by taking that risk. So I think had I played the tokens deck that I'm playing now, maybe things turn out differently for everyone. Who knows? So you
actually think you're advocating switch decks Thursday night? That's what you're telling me here.
I'm not really saying switch decks Thursday night. I'm just saying take that risk. If you have a deck that you're unsure of, but it's very innovative and exciting, and people won't really know how to approach the matchup, that risk can be worth it if you're already uncertain anyways. I already didn't know what I wanted to play. I was also deciding between Pat Chapin's Esper deck that my teammates Paul and my team limited teammates Paul and Matt ended up running. It was a great deck. I just felt like, it's not where I really wanted to be at the Pro Tour. I kind of wanted to be mid-range or aggressive. I didn't want to be a control deck. So I was just so unsure that I think I should have just went with the taking the risk. I should have gambled, something that I should be used to.
I guess it helps if your teammate is Sam Black, the guy who's like, Thursday morning, I waked up, I had a vision. Here's how we fix the deck.
Yeah, I mean, he even said, we were talking, he's like, why do I always wait to the last minute? He's like, why can't I just ever have this happen a week or two in advance? Because, I mean, I think if it happened a week or two in advance and then we were able to really run it through a gauntlet of matchups, figure out where the holes are and really shore those up, it would have been really nasty for everyone else at the Pro Tour. But now kind of the secret's out. People can prepare for it. I mean, it's the kind of deck where it's powerful, but if people know what it's doing and have sideboard cards and prepared for it, it's beatable. It's not like at the Pro Tour, people would have no idea what's happening. All of a sudden, you secure the waste for 8, untap, play a retreat. You have a sack land and play another and attack for 32. And you can do things like that. So people are prepared and kind of know what to expect. So it's a lot different. I felt that coming into tonight, we wouldn't see too much innovation. It turned out one half of the bracket you kind of have the innovation, the other half you don't. I mean, the half with Owen Reed, Tom Martell, and I believe Kenji on that side. There's 3 Jeskai decks, which are all pretty much the same, the Dark Jeskai list, and then Reed on his Esper list. So it's not really exciting. I mean, I almost knew Owen and Reed would be playing their Pro Tour decks. I would have bet a lot on that. And when I was picking my deck, I actually asked my teammates, I'm like, what really has a great matchup against Jeskai? Because only 2 qualify, and there's a good chance I'll have to go through Owen, and I want to be able to beat Owen because I know he's going to be playing his Pro Tour list after the success him and John both just had this weekend. So...
yeah, you'd have to say Dark Jeskai had the best Pro Tour weekend. And we do see essentially 3 of those in this tournament.
Right. I mean, it was the most popular deck in the field, I believe. So that's
it was kind of a 3-way tie, honestly, between Jeskai, Tarka Red, and the Green-White Megamorph. Well, Megamorph broadly construed. It was surprisingly close to a 3-way tie. Actually, a lot of people, I think, expected the red decks to be, a cut below, but they were as popular as Jeskai and Megamorph.
Yeah, in our testing, I was actually the once we got to Wisconsin, I was the Atarka Red guy, playing that matchup for everybody. And the funny part is I just kept smashing everyone game 1. And for a while, I was like, this deck is just so good. And I mean, look at Paolo's record, although he actually only went 6-3-1 with the deck because he went 6-0 in draft. But I was smashing everyone game 1, but I just felt the sideboard games and people have cards like Surge of Righteousness, which is just really hard to beat when you're trying to combo them off with Become Immense and Timur Battle Rage.
Yeah, my take watching it is that Atarka Red was a spectacular day 1 deck, and the Red-Green Landfall too. If you talk about aggro red all rolled together, it did really well on day 1. Rose in what its percentage of the metagame was, but the people who were deep in the Swiss on day 2 had a plan. They all kind of knew what was up. They didn't tap out and get combo killed, and the deck didn't do nearly as well on day 2. Paolo being the only one who managed to get into the top 8 with it.
Right. So when I was back to the innovation though, so I figured this week we wouldn't see much, and I would still be okay to kind of bring out the Bant tokens deck. I actually thought I would see.
You can get your deck list up on the screen. Let folks see what you're talking about. That'd be great.
Oh yeah, sure. Let's get that up. I actually thought of 1 or 2 more players would have it, and I had asked Sam, I'm like, what can we do for the mirror? And he's like, well, you definitely want more erase. And I went up to 3. Okay. Unfortunately, nobody's actually playing it. I had wanted to cut the Surge of Righteousness, which I would have been correct because I said, I don't think this group is really running mono red. But he's like, no, you can't cut those because they're just so important if somebody is. So I could have, had some more sideboard room if I kind of went with my gut that no one would run mono red. But, the Surges might come up against the rally decks. They do have black creatures, and unfortunately, there's no finals play out. So the Jeskai decks on the other side, I won't need it against like a Mantis Rider or even a Sarkin.
This deck is so crazy. The green is just Elvish Visionary and Nissa.
Yeah, it's really strange. I mean, there were some, people who just looked at the list when it was presented were like, what is Visionary in there for? Can't we just find a better 2-drop? And, why are we playing green? But Sam's response, which makes a lot of sense, is you really want to hit all of your land drops, and Elvish Visionary helps with that. And Nissa, I mean, the card you want most when you use Nissa is usually a land when you have Retreat out because it doesn't count as your land drop. And if you hit like a fetch land, you just have so many, +2/+2 or 2 tokens or 1 of each. So, Nissa is really powerful in this deck. Like I said, we, as in Sam, but us testing against them, tried Black, White, and Esper. He tried many different versions of the Retreat deck. And I think this just ended up being the best one he could find.
Now, I know that this deck did really well. Definitely one of the ones that I was most excited to try out after the Pro Tour. You've changed it a little bit, right? I see 3 Blighted Woodlands. I think Sam only had 1.
So, yeah, obviously I have access to Sam. I'm pretty lucky, him being a teammate and a friend. We talked a little bit about the changes he would make at the Pro Tour based on how it felt and, where to go forward and what I thought my opponents would be playing. The biggest thing he said was Blighted Woodland were great. He wanted more, and he had said, hey, cut 2 Wooded Foothills for them. I'm like, yeah, but I'm only down to 10 fetches. He's like, dude, it's way better than a fetch. Blighted Foot, and that's the same thing Ben Stark, who also for the deck had said he wanted more Blighted Woodlands. So
yeah.
I added 2 Blighted Woodlands for the 2 Wooded Foothills. And then in talking, Sam had said he really wanted an Evolutionary Leap in the main deck because he felt like any game where he had a leap going, he said it was just felt really impossible to lose. So the card we thought we cut, he said there's so many 4-drops, it could be a Retreat or a Gideon. I ended up going with Gideon, which once the matchups and deck list came out, it's also a card he said, good, you don't want 4 of it against the rally deck anyway because it's kind of slow and you don't have a lot of time. So even though Leap's not going to help really fill that spot in that matchup, I don't think, it still is, a nice card to have in the main. Let you.
Yeah, I did notice the Leap in the main. I was wondering what you cut for it. Gideon makes sense. So you are going to be playing against Rally. You've got Li Shiqian, right?
I do.
That should be an interesting. I'm certainly interested in watching that matchup, but I want to start talking about our first matchup. We get to the top of the hour, 6 o'clock. We have got quite the battle: the Peach Garden versus Peach Garden Violence.
I'm surprised that this is the leadoff match. It's like you're popping the champagne right away, or I couldn't think of an appropriate term to use that's acceptable, but. Man, I mean, these 2 guys are 2 of the best in the world, especially right now, but maybe of all time. I mean, both, I think, Owen, I think, is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Reed will probably be when he gets there in, 8 more years. The guy's only been, playing for 2, but they're both incredible players, and they both know their decks. These are their Pro Tour decks, I believe. I don't know if there's any changes at all. I don't think Owen's changed anything. I don't know Reed's off the top of my head, but maybe they did. But either way, it's the same deck, which means they know their decks well. They know the matchups well. They both practiced for the Pro Tour and did great. One made top 8 in Owen. Reed lost playing for it. So this is going to be a matchup I'm super excited to watch. I'm actually, even though commentating on it with you is going to be fun, but I would love to just study it and watch it. So I'm sure I'm going to go back and watch and learn some things from watching these 2 Titans play.
Yeah, let's put Owen's list up on if we can. This is the deck he top 8'd with the Pro Tour. And I'm with you. I think it's probably card for card the same deck he top 8'd the Pro Tour with. It's possible that he tweaked it by card. I didn't, go through and compare, but this is Dark Jeskai. This is, the deck people expected going into the Pro Tour, and it's still put multiple people into the top 8, even with a kind of a target on its forehead. So definitely, I think will be one of the staples in Standard for a while now. It's just, that fetch land, battle land, mana base lets you run Mantis Rider and Crackling Doom in the same deck. And the Pantheon list, in particular, went all the way to 3 Kolaghan's Command and fully 3 copies of Tasigur for that Black Splash. I don't even know if Splash is the right word for it.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest innovation between their list and most of the other lists you'd seen. Even the list in our testing, we had 1 Kolaghan's Command, maybe 2 at most in a few decks. We never had any Tasigurs in our Dark Jeskai decks. And it's kind of funny because in testing all of our decks, we really just slept on Tasigur. Even in our Chapin's Esper deck, sometimes the question would come up, don't any of these decks want a Tasigur? And everybody was kind of like, I don't think the format's right for it. So, hats off to the Pantheon for really figuring out the format and that Tasigur was going to be a huge role player. I mean, every game I watched this deck play, whether it was on the stream for day 2 or the top 8, or when I sat next to John one round, Tasigur was just dominating. I mean, it was great against the red decks because it was a quick, cheap 1 or 2 mana, 5 toughness body you could play. Against the controlled decks, it must be answered, and the mid-range decks too. So it's not like it's a new card, but for some reason, everybody but the Pantheon seemed to be sleeping on Tasigur.
Yeah, we should look at Reed's deck as well. I think it's really interesting the way Reed's deck is set up in this matchup. I think that one of the primary reasons to play Esper is because it has a good matchup against Jeskai.
Yeah, I mean, we found our Esper deck was a lot different than Chapin's. The one Chapin design was a lot different than this deck, but we did find that the Esper deck was favored in general against the Jeskai deck. I don't know
if the Planeswalkers, right? You had like Obnixilis and Gideon.
Obnixilis and Gideon, and those were tough to deal with. And Ugin is one of the hardest planeswalkers for Jeskai to deal with at all. I mean, it has to pretty much get a haste creature out and attack it. It can't burn it out, and it has no way to really remove it. I believe they have an Utter End in their deck or sideboard. Yeah, they have an Utter End. So they do have that, but once Ugin gets down, especially with counters to sort of protect it, it's kind of game over. So I think Reed's goal is to kind of get to the long game, which he has so many counter spells. I mean, Clash of Wills is great because the Jeskai deck's going to be tapping out a lot. And then he's also got Jace and 4 dig through time, which is a huge edge, as the other deck has 2. So I think Reed's deck was made with beating Jeskai in mind, which is quite fortunate for him that his side of the bracket is 3 other Jeskai decks.
Yeah. Yeah, if he's right, if this really is the anti-Jeskai tech, he's well positioned to take advantage of it. We can throw the bracket up and show you guys how his side of the bracket lines up. But like you say, it just happens that he's playing versus Jeskai in the first round in Owen, and then he's going to be playing, if he wins that, he's going to be playing Jeskai one way or the other. Only question is whether it's Tom Martell or Kenji Egashira.
The interesting thing about Reed's deck, I find, is how it doesn't have the training wheels, you could say. It doesn't really have a definite win condition. I mean, a lot of these decks play like a dragon or something. I mean, I believe, if I'm looking at it, he's got to deck them with Flips Jace, beat down with an Irration Cleric, animate some lands with one of his 3 Awaken spells, or just bolt them out with Ugin. So, he can get control, and I like it and I respect it. Just you don't see it very often like these days. Usually people throw some kind of win condition in their deck so that they have like an easy way to win the game. He's gonna just do it the hard way, take control of the game, and then burn him out with an Ugin.
Yeah, it's really Ugin. The victory condition is Ugin the Spirit Dragon. 2 copies and then a Haven that can bring him back. I think.
And he has a Shambling Vent also, so don't sleep on that manland. That's
sorry. He has a Shambling Vent. You're right. My apologies. He also has an Irration Cleric. Land attacks too, right?
And it can come back numerous ways. Ojutai's Command can bring that guy back.
Yeah, I think Scatter the Winds is more likely to win a game than Irration Cleric, but
yes,
I bet Ugin is most of his victories.
Oh, of course. I'm just saying that's it's just rare you see a true control deck like this anymore these days.
No, it's a great point. And I do think that, especially with 50-minute rounds at the Pro Tour, I know it's been 55 minutes until recently. It was 60 minutes back in the day, but at 50 minutes, it really can be legitimately tough to win a best 2 out of 3. He gets 40 minutes for Super League, though, so I think it's actually a slightly better fit for Super League than it is for maybe even the Pro Tour.
Yeah, I mean, you get 40 minutes of your own clock, right? And your opponent gets the clock. So you get, I think it's great for Magic Online. I personally wish Pro Tour rounds were 30 minutes. I mean, my average round takes 20 minutes or less. So I have a lot of time in those 8 rounds I played last Pro Tour just hanging out, watching matches, birding, learning. So it's one of the reasons I go. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I purposely choose to not play decks like this because I don't want to play a 50-minute round, go to time, and have to win in extra turns. I mean, I just don't enjoy that. I get really bored with it. So my deck choice kind of goes along with that.
Makes sense. So the Twitter conversation has been kind of fun too. I think that I pointed out I thought Reed had a nice advantage for his side of the bracket. Reed's comment was something along the lines of when he's got a deck matchup advantage and he's playing his best Magic, he can go 50-50 against Owen as long as Owen's blindfolded.
Yeah, I mean, I think Reed's selling himself short there. Not that Owen isn't one of the all-time greats. I mean, I hate playing Owen because he's just so tough and he's not going to make any mistakes. But I can say the same about Reed. I mean, Reed is one of the best players in the world, and I truly have confidence in Reed's ability to hang with Owen and how he plays. And if the deck matchup is in Reed's favor, he's a great player. I got to give the match to Reed. So you can never count Owen out. Owen will always find a way, and I know he's prepared for this. But if Reed is playing this deck because it's made to beat Jeskai, look for Reed to make the finals.
Awesome. Well, we will see. That's enough for the pregame show. Stay tuned, guys. We will be right back with match number 1, the Peach Garden Battle. Stay tuned.